So since the time that I was about, I don't know, 10 years old until she's 50 years old when I moved away from there, whenever I would pass a local Passionist monastery that was in our area, I would always think of one experience that I had there that just has stuck with me since, like I said, since I was 10 years old. And that's when I got to meet Venerable Archbishop Fulton Sheen. You see, as kids, my older brothers and I, if we weren't playing sports of some kind, football, basketball, baseball, or at practices or games, or at school, we were at the monastery. And I loved growing up there. I was practically raised there, and I got to know all the priests and brothers there, and they were just terrific, terrific men. But one night, my father came to me, and he said, "Hey, you're not going to baseball practice. You have to go with me to the monastery." And I wasn't happy because I lived for baseball, still do, still love it. But he takes my brothers and I to the monastery and to the chapel. And when I say chapel, this thing's as big as just about any church that you would see. And on the way there, he tells me we're going to go see Archbishop Fulton Sheen speak. Now, my parents were huge fans of Archbishop Sheen. My mother, since the time that my parents had lived up in New York before they moved down to Florida, she would run into Bishop Sheen. I guess he filmed close to where she used to work. So she would actually see him in this local diner every once in a while. She got to interact with him quite a bit. But my dad took just my brothers and me to the monastery to see him talk. Now, at 10 years old, I can't say that I really knew what was going on with him. I knew about him. I'd been around hundreds of priests by then and even some bishops and things like that. So, it wasn't a big deal to me to go spend some time with a priest or a bishop. So we're sitting in the chapel, though. I'll never forget, he was sitting up in a chair in front of the altar, and he's sitting there, and he had his head down, and obviously he was meditating. I didn't know that as a kid, as a 10-year-old kid. I didn't know what was going on. All I knew was he was just sitting there, not saying anything. He was, what I thought was just, he had his eyes closed. So I asked my older brother, I said, "Hey, Matt," I said, "What's he doing?" And my brother says, "He's meditating." So I said, my 10-year-old brain, I heard, "He's mad at us." So I said, "Why is he mad at us?" He goes, "Meditating, moron." Great to have older brothers, isn't it? Don't remember much about the talk itself. I do remember just being enthralled at what he was saying, even as a 10-year-old. And of course, he was probably talking pretty lofty stuff. So we sit through the talk, and my dad, after the talk, he brings us all up to Bishop Sheen. And my dad has a stack of books about this big for him to sign, books that he had written. And my dad was the kind of guy who, you're not going to bring just one book and have somebody say, you're going to bring every book that you have of the man and make him sign it. He was the same way with, sports memorabilia and things like that. He was such a pain, but I love him for it. So Bishop Sheen takes the books, no problem. And he starts signing his name in these books. And he gets to one book and he just takes it and he kind of thrusts it back at my father. And he said quite tersely, "I didn't write this book." And my dad, sorry, takes it back. But I remember I was standing right next to Archbishop Sheen. And I remember just being, again, enthralled. I hate to use that word again, but I'm standing there right next to Archbishop Sheen. And I just remember, even then as a 10-year-old, not really being able to comprehend a lot of what was going on. I just remember thinking, there's something very special about this man. And I was very drawn to him. And I loved being, that close to him in that close proximity and just, watching him interact with my dad. And so after he threw the book back at my dad thanked him and everything, Archbishop Sheen gave me a blessing. And again, I'd been around all kinds of priests, bishops and all that, and I'd gotten blessings from them all the time. My dad was very big on that, asking a priest to bless me and my brothers and sisters. But so, okay, I got a blessing from this guy. But again, I just felt innately that there was something special about him. So, and I remember for the longest time, my dad would tell anybody who would listen how my son got blessed by Archbishop Fulton Sheen. He was so happy about that. And sadly over the years, I don't know what happened to those books. Like I said, he had probably 6 to 8 books signed by him. And I don't know if maybe he wanted to give one to each of us kids. There were 7 of us in our family, or what his plans were with the books. A lot of the books were boxed up because my dad was, at the time, he was redoing parts of the house. So it was under construction. And when he died, things got moved around, things got lost. I don't know. It's a shame. I really wish I could have had one of those books as a keepsake Not just from, my dad, but also because it's Venerable Archbishop Sheen that signed him. And I wish I was a little bit older at the time, because I think I would have appreciated more of what Archbishop Sheen was talking about. Like I said, I have no memory of the actual talk that he gave, but I think if I was older, I could have absorbed more of it and kept more of that in my memory. But anyway, that's just a short little story about the time that I met Venerable Archbishop Fulton Sheen. And guys, let's get him canonized, all right? It's about time. It's past time. Stop with the foolish games that one diocese is playing against another or whatever. Let's just stop with all the games and get it done, shall we? And getting back to that monastery, I have to say, I wish that other kids had had the experiences that I did at the monastery. Being around those priests, and they were some really good priests, good holy men. It was such a joyous time for me. My fondest memories are from basically being raised at that monastery. And that's what led me, in large part, to discern a call to the priesthood. And I discerned with them for a while. Ended up discerning out, but that's okay. And that monastery is still there. They don't call it a monastery anymore. It's now a retreat center. But the thing is, I had gone back there a couple of times as an adult, not too long ago when I was still living in Florida. And I was looking for a priest at that time for spiritual direction. And it didn't go well. I guess they're teaching centering prayer and things like that there now. And it's just not good. So I didn't really go back there anymore after that. But again, when we are back down in Florida, of course, we drive the old neighborhood, and we drive by that monastery. And as we're making the sign of the cross, because Jesus is there in the tabernacle, I always think about that. I always think about Archbishop Sheen and the time I met him, and it always just kind of makes me smile. Till next time, God bless, and Padre Pio, Ora pro nobis, Venerable Archbishop Fulton Sheen, Ora pro nobis.